Okay folks, what's today's project? We're going to take a look at this Husky mobile cart. We did the top in the last video, or one of the previous ones. I'm going to cut and make a bottom for this, and we'll apply some kind of a different finish to it and just have some fun. Here we go. Alright, I'm going to cut the wood. I'll meet you back over at the workbench in a minute and we'll discuss what we're going to do. Okay everybody, this is the bottom that I made. I cut it so that it would fit in there and make a nice platform on the bottom of that Husky tool cart, or mobile cart, whatever you want to call it. Piece of plywood I had laying around, I just cut it to dimension. It's got a couple imperfections. It's got a cut mark over here. That's the reason why I'm just going to use it for a shelf. Now, when I set that in there, there's a magnet on the inside lip of that, so I had to cut this notch right here. And I just cut it out square. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just notched it real quick. It's just going to be a shelf. It's going to be hidden most of the time. I sanded the top of this to 120. And I cleaned it off. So now we're going to apply some kind of a finish to it. So we discussed in one of the past videos the big workbenches that I built, and I used boiled linseed oil. Last couple of videos on the tabletop we used Watco's Danish oil, just the natural. So I thought, let's try something different just so that you can see the differences in things. And I'm going to make this one similar to the top of that huge bench that I built outside along the wall. So I'm going to put a coat of boiled linseed oil on this. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to get some gloves, grab the boiled linseed oil, and we'll get busy with it. Okay folks, so I went and got the boiled linseed oil right here. Clean strip. I'll leave a link below. I get a lot of stuff, like I keep saying, off Amazon. It's just a matter of convenience, like I always tell you. But you can get this out of the big box store, any hardware store. It's inexpensive. You don't have to buy a gallon of this. You can buy it in the quart size. I get it in a gallon because in the long run it's cheaper, for me, and I use this on a lot of projects because I can mix dyes in with it. I can do all kinds of things with boiled linseed oil. So I'm just going to we're going to make a no frill finish here. Just like I said, it's a workbench. It's not a piece of furniture. So let's get the top off. I'm just going to pour it right onto the wood because, like I said, it's a workbench. Alright, there's a big glob of it. I always keep the top of these cans real clean, and I put the top back on right away so that I don't forget. Alright, let's stick it away. Alright, I'm just using old shop towels, okay? And I'm just starting to wipe this around. Just like this. And we're doing this in real time, just having some fun. Weekend project. I've been putting it off for a while anyway since I bought that bench. So I decided it would be a good day to get around to it, and why not make a little bit of a video out of it. And this sucks it in, if you can tell. So I keep applying it over all of these dry areas. I just keep going over it. And you notice I'm probably not going to have enough, even though it looked like I dropped out, quite a bit onto this wood. Well, the thing is, with bare wood like this, it sucks up the finish fast. Alright, so put some extra on there this time. Alright, back to the rag, all over it. Now the thing about linseed oil, you want to keep swirling this. You want to keep all the areas wet. It's just like we did with that Watco Danish oil. If you see any dry spots, you want to keep this wet on there. Okay, now you might give it a few minutes, let it absorb and get into the wood, but then you want to look at this closely and you want to go back over all the dry areas. Let it keep soaking in all the oil at once until it gets saturated, let's say. And you'll know because it'll quit absorbing it. I'm going to let this sit for a couple of minutes and I'll be right back, and then we'll finish the conversation. No sense in just sitting here watching it dry. I'm letting it set up, and all I do is every once in a while I just look at it and I keep going over those areas that look real dry. That's all I'm doing right now. I decided on this, to go ahead and show you something. The end grain, I just dab it on like this. okay, and it's going to soak up a lot more than the flat surface, okay, so you just got to dab it on all the way around. I decided, because linseed oil is so cheap, even on the unfinished side of this, it's like saying, look, let's just go ahead and put one coat on it. I'm just going to put one coat, that's all, on the side that isn't going to be seen, just as a protective layer. And I always go with the grain when I'm done, or my final passes on this. This is not going to show. It's like saying, who cares, why go through the effort? It's just a habit I've been in. You know, so I'm going to let this set up and dry on both sides. Now on the front side, the side that I'm most concerned about, I don't really care back here if it's a little thick or thin anywhere, because it was just a single coat. Linseed oil, if you let it just sit there and you just let it sit for an indefinite period of time, it can get real tacky on you and you're not going to like the finish. So I'm just showing you the same procedure I used when we did the one with the Danish oil. It's got lots of wet spots. I'm just going to keep going over everything just like this. I'm going to let it soak in all it wants to. Okay, and I just keep a container here and I just keep dabbing this in. Now, if I'm doing this on furniture or something, I would use a cloth. I wouldn't use this blue shop towel, but like I said, it's a workbench. So over the next 15 minutes, I just keep looking at it and I make sure I've given it plenty of oil to soak in. Go right along here. Remember, it's a workbench, so we're not doing a piece of finished furniture. So, but it gives it a really nice, deep looking kind of a finish to it just on its own without us doing anything else to it. Okay, I'll be back with you. Okay, so time's gone by and this is soaked in quite a bit. Now once I'm satisfied with the amount that it is soaked in, and I keep rubbing this like I told you throughout the process of letting it sit for that 20 minutes. I mean, I just keep at this and, you know, I got to apply more, I do. And it's pretty darn dry, okay? So that's been about 30 minutes now. Now linseed oil doesn't dry as fast as the Watco and some of the other finishes we've used. This can take a while. Now usually after I do 2 coats, and we're going to do the second coat in a minute, show you a couple little tricks, I let this sit. It could sit for 2-3 days, maybe a week, and let this really dry. Linseed oil has a tendency to dry incredibly slow. And I don't like putting finishes over it prematurely. Now other people will argue, and you can drop a comment below, oh, you can finish it a lot sooner than that. Yeah, maybe I don't, okay? Now, it's a sunny day out, and this isn't a piece of wet wood. This is actually just really dry shop grade plywood, okay? It's just linseed oil. I wouldn't do this with another finish, but I could set it out in the sun, and that'll speed up the drying process too. Just set it outside. I don't care if dust or anything gets on it, because I'm going to dust it off. And I can always go over this real lightly with steel wool to get rid of the nibs. Okay, so here we are, first coat done. Let's talk about the second coat. Somebody made the comment, well, why are you always using a shop towel? You can use a rag, it doesn't matter. You can use a foam brush, regular brush, whatever you want. It's up to you. Okay, let's apply the second coat and let's see if it adds any more depth to it before we worry about putting any kind of a finish coat on there. And then I'll show you one I'm just going to go ahead and put on there just so that I can show you a complete video without having to wait a week or two for it to totally set. So I'll scrub it dry. Okay, so here we go with the second coat. Just putting it on with a brush. We'll go around and do the edges. You got time with this. It's not going to set up real fast on you. So just like this, all the way around it. I go across the grain like this when I want to make sure I get all the pores in. Okay, I get it all on there, and then I'll show you what I do if I'm using a brush. Give me just a sec. I want to get plenty of it on there before I explain it to you. I might as well just dump some of it on there. No matter. It's the last coat anyway. I don't pour out more than what I think I'm going to use, otherwise you're just wasting material. Again, I'm going to coat this whole thing just like this. And just move it around. When you see the puddle, you'll see that big puddle you poured. Just keep moving it till you got everything coated and everything looks very wet. I'm going to keep everything very wet looking. Now notice I'm going all over the place with the brush. Now then I go like this. I go cross grain with it. And everybody's going to argue you should go with the grain. We will. I'm going cross grain like this, and I do it in both directions. I want to make sure I fill in any little crevices or anything that may be in this wood. Now I'm pretending that this is something more than just a workbench bottom, you know, so just showing you technique wise what I do, what works for me, and I kind of have a proven track record, of it working. So like I said, there'll be people that disagree with the technique. That's fine. Maybe you got your own way of doing it. I'm just showing you this is very quick and very easy. Okay, now that was going across the grain. Now I'm looking at this, and this is not soaking it in anywhere near like it did on that first coat. The first coat is really going to suck in and sink into it deep. Okay, this coat not so much. Last thing I do, long strokes with the grain. In a way, this doesn't matter either, especially for a workbench top, because we're going to rub off all the excess when we're done here in a bit. So you said you really have to go through that. No, not really, but remember, this is just like a protocol in my head. I always do it this way. Now, somebody said, well, you can leave it alone, man, that looks beautiful the way that it is. You don't want to do that. Remember, like I told you, as this starts to set, if it's on there thick like this, it's going to get super tacky and you're going to have a heck of a time. So you can use other chemicals, of course, to loosen it up, but then you're going to start over, so we'll try to avoid that. You can use mineral spirits, actually, if you needed to. Let's say you let it sit too long on accident, you came back to it, you can get a rag with mineral spirits and start wiping this, okay? And then when you got all that tackiness off of there, just let it dry overnight, bring it back, and then start over with your linseed oil. Okay, but you can do it with a brush, yes. A lot of times I just do it. Old t-shirts, rags. I know I used a shop towel in the beginning, but that was the first coat. That was just to show you I get it on there quickly. Now I'll be back in about, now with linseed oil this is different. This is what I do. You can do it differently. I'm going to let this sit for 45-50 minutes, close to an hour, and I'm going to keep checking this, and I have the brush at hand. I go, oh look, there's some dry spots right here. Oh, let's go flood some more on there. Just like this. Tilt it, look at it, whatever you got to do, and make sure all those spots stay nice and wet. It's not going to soak in as fast, it's not going to soak in as much, you know, so you want to go over the whole thing like I'm doing, go ahead and do it. That way it ensures you haven't missed anything. And there you go, let's leave it alone. I will check this about every 15-20 minutes, and if there's anything dry, I apply a little bit more, swipe, swipe, leave it alone. You're going to hand rub most all of this off anyway that's wet when we reach that 20-minute mark on the first coat, or when we reach that 1 hour or so on the second. You can let it sit longer, of course. I don't think I'd let it sit shorter, because you want it to have time to really get in and do its magic for you. Getting too much of a rush, your finish probably not going to turn out as nice as you wanted it to. Alright, enough yapping. Let's let it sit. See you in an hour. Okay, so some time's gone by, almost an hour, and it still looks wet in a lot of areas, dry in a couple of areas, but I can always smooth these out. Now I'm going to try to take a lot of this off, as much of it as I can, right? And you're going to have to switch your towel around. These are just shop towels. Okay, now that looks pretty good, okay, just at a glance. What you want to be careful about, I'm going to set this out now in the sun. I'm going to speed up the drying process of this. Hopefully the sun will dry it out fast enough to where I can show you a new kind of a finish you can put on here that's a no-brainer. It's really easy, it looks really good. But before I get to that, the one thing you want to be really cautious about with Watco, like we did in the past projects, or like in this one, and I'll remind you, you want to look for weeping. What happens is when the wood sets, all of a sudden it'll push some of that oil back to the surface for whatever reason, okay? And when it does, those are going to leave blotches or spots, and you don't want those. So every so often, I don't care if it's every 30 minutes to an hour, you know, I wouldn't wait too long because it's going to dry faster now that you've rubbed the surface off. I would take a look at it and go over it again, just like this if you want to, or look for those areas where you saw the weeping or you saw the bleeding, whatever term you want to use, and wipe them off, just like this. Alright, so I got this good and dry right now, and you can see it'll pick up some of the sanding, dirt, or whatever was left on there. Now I blew this off and I wiped it, but still I'm getting some crud back off of it, and that's a plus. You're getting all of these impurities off of this, and your finish is going to look a lot better. So like I keep telling you, what's the difference between a mediocre finish and an outstanding finish? It's a little bit more time. And that's what we're going to do here, even though it's just a bench top that'll never be seen, because it's going to go in that cabinet below. But, alright, I'm going to go set this out in the sun. I got some other things to do. I'll come back in a while this afternoon. We'll apply a finish to the top of this, and you'll see what else you can do that make yourself a nice, spectacular looking finish. I'll see you in just a little bit. Okay folks, it's later in the day, so it's nice and dry right now. Still pretty warm. I'm going to take a piece of steel wool 4/0 to it. It's just, like I said, a base to a bench, but let's pretend it's not. Let's pretend we're doing something a little bit better with it. And, well, let's see what we can do for the finish. Now, I'm not going to sit here and hand rub this real good. I'm just going over it. I'm knocking down any of the high shiny spots, stuff like that. All the little nibs off of it, like I said before, anything that's settled on it and kind of stuck to it during the drying process. So, it just takes minutes to sit and do this, okay? So like I said, a little bit more time on the finish won't hurt you, and it will make it turn out a lot better than had you not done it. So we'll take a look here in just a sec. Alright, that's all I'm going to do for this. I would have worked on this more had this been like for a piece of furniture or some fancy tabletop. But let me blow this off, wipe it off. I'll be right back. Okay, I have it good and cleaned off now. Sitting here just like it is. Now, we're going to try a new product. Now, generally I would have used Johnson's Paste Wax. I'll leave you the link below. But I also favor using Howard's Feed and Wax. It's orange oil. So it has some oil in it and some wax, both, which will help, give this thing a pretty decent shine, I believe. And like I said, you're not going to get semi-glossy. You'll get real close to it. Let's give it a try. I'm going to use the cloth this time. And I'm just going to dump some of this out on here. Alright. Might need more. I don't know yet. We'll see. And this time I'll use a cloth. Okay? Alright. I like this Howard's. I really do. It's got a nice smell to it. It's got an orange smell, just like it says on the label. But like I said, we don't have smell-o-vision, so I can't share that part of it with you. But I'm going to rub it all over this, okay? This is enough. I can feel it right now. It's gliding over everything really well. I've got it nice and wet. Okay, just like this. and take a look at it in the light or however you want, and I just keep rubbing it in. Okay, now it says on the bottle you don't have to do that. You can just put it on, let it dry, buff it off. Okay, I'm just telling you what I do because I get, I think, a little bit better results than normal by kind of tweaking, you know, the way you put it on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to do this in real time, the scrubbing part, but I will pause it because we're going to let this sit for, oh, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, maybe 45, because it's a thin coat. Okay, and you can see, even though I wiped that with a paper towel before we started this, I still got off some gook off of here. Okay, so that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm not wearing gloves. You don't have to. This is food safe wax with orange oil. I mean, hey, you know, so you don't need to worry about gloves. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, I'll see you in about an hour. Okay, 45 minutes to an hour. I'll be back. Then we're going to buff this by hand, and then let's look at it. Okay, about an hour's gone by, and I'm back at this, and now I'm just going to sit and I'm going to buff this off, and then we'll take a look at it. I'm just using an old towel cut-up. That's all I'm using. Alright, so let's recap what we did. This is what we have now. This is what we started off with. So I used my belt sander and I used 80 grit. And I went both cross grain and with the grain, and at the end I went with the grain. Then I switched the belt to a 120 grit belt. I went over the whole thing knowing this is going to be a base to the inside of a cabinet, so I stopped at 120. I blew it off real good. I wiped it down with a cloth. Then I applied boiled linseed oil. I put 2 coats on, and I spaced them anywhere from 20-30 minutes, something like that, up to about an hour. And as it started to dry, any dry spots, I just added more to it, and I kept it wet, and I let the wood absorb in as much as it wanted. The end grains, okay, they're going to absorb a lot more than just the surface on the long grain. So expect that you're going to use more on these edges. I just take and dipped the towel into it, got it real wet, and just went along dabbing it until it wouldn't absorb any more, especially on the second coat. 2 coats of that. I set it out in the sun to speed up the drying process. I hope that it did, because it's actually really rushing something I normally would have taken a lot longer period of time on in terms of the drying. Okay, when it was dry, I went over it with 4/0 steel wool. After that, I turned around and put a coat of Howard's feeding wax, orange oil. I get it off Amazon, ships prime. I like using this stuff. I use it on a lot of wood turnings. It's food safe, so you don't need to worry if you're hand carving bowls or whatever you're doing, and somebody's going to actually eat out of that wooden bowl, their salad or whatever. You want to always use something food safe. But I wanted to use it on this project to show you a difference between the Johnson Space Wax and the Howard's. And Howard's has orange oil in it, like I said. Smells nice. Okay, this is the finished product right here. So, not a super short video, I understand, but there are things, like I said, that are worth talking about if you're interested in something like this. To do it is easy, to maintain it is easy. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease, not much. Takes some drying time. You can do other things while it's drying. So, let's, you got a comment or a question, go ahead and drop it below. I think the video's been long enough. So I'll see what they say off of the forum, do an update in the future maybe, but if you have a comment or you have a question, drop it below. If you got a better way of doing it, of course drop it below. I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe. I hope you keep following me, hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next video. You folks have a great weekend. Bye-bye.